First things first, I would like to offer a formal apology to Sonny Piers. In my original video, I had assumed that he was at fault for his removal from the GNOME Foundation board. I was operating under what now I wouldn't even consider half information, partial information on the matter, assuming that what he has now claimed in his, honestly, nuclear public statement on the matter is all true. It changes things completely. So for anyone entirely out of the loop or just doesn't remember what happened 2 years ago, let me explain. Back in July of 2024, it was announced that then sitting GNOME Foundation board member Sonny Piers was removed from the board as of May 17th, 2024. Following the procedure outlined in the GNOME bylaws, they have removed him from all committees, effective as of May 25th. This had already happened by the time that this was published. Following this, Sonny put out a statement, not really saying that much, kind of just vague posting about it. I am no longer a member of the board of directors of the GNOME Foundation since May 2024. The process and decision shocked me. I know people are looking for answers, but I want to protect people involved and the project/foundation. It was never an interpersonal conflict for me. Not really explaining what happened, just saying something did happen. GNOME for a long time now has had a somewhat controversial reputation as a desktop environment due to many of the changes you are likely aware of. But this situation, alongside money mismanagement and some other things we'll get into, had basically torched the Foundation's reputation amongst many large-profile members of the GNOME community, alongside general GNOME users. A lot of people did not trust the Foundation, and frankly, I understand why. You had a sitting board member removed, nothing was explained, there was an issue, something happened, go about your day. And recently, this post was made by now former GNOME Foundation Executive Director Stephen Diebold. Stay and fight. 9 months ago, I had to field quite a few angry comments from folks who told me they intended to drop their GNOME Foundation memberships in the wake of confusing and opaque board behavior. I say to you now what I told each of them back in September. Stay and fight. I wasn't really sure what this was about at the time, and when this was posted on the GNOME Reddit, which is like home territory, everybody loves GNOME there, a lot of people were saying, basically, too little too late. This post makes a lot more sense now. We are currently in the middle of the GNOME Foundation board candidacy. Most of this is going quite smoothly. A lot of people are running, it's looking good. Notably, one thread stands out here, McQueen. This is the one we're going to focus on. Former GNOME Foundation president, and president during the situation where Sonny Piers was removed from the board. That's a very relevant detail. But before we get to Sonny's response, he was already being mentioned in the thread from Jonas D. As one of the people who got hit by the whole F-up that was the ban of Sonny, I, together with the old team of STF contractors, was promised a public written apology by you personally, going into detail on what went wrong and why. So far, I haven't seen that from you. STF being the Sovereign Tech Fund, the same Sovereign Tech Fund that recently gave funding over to KDE. As a bit of a teaser, following GNOME's funding round, Tobias, who was in charge of actually handling the application, said this, PSA, I'm stepping down from putting together an STF application for 2025. Reflecting on our experiences with the STF project last year, I no longer think the GNOME Foundation is a good venue to organize development collectively. Even if the Foundation's current issues are fixed, we've seen how risky it is to centralize development in a single structure. My hope is that we'll learn from this and find more sustainable, decentralized ways of organizing going forward. Repeatedly promising something then not delivering burns through community trust. Arguably, this missing apology never was, and still isn't, the most pressing issue the Foundation has to solve, but to me, it is something very personal until today. Lots of trust has been burned through over the years, and given how few of your promises have been delivered under your long-running leadership, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with you running things on the board one more time. Robert responded to this basically saying he didn't know what he could say without creating a legal liability mess. That is also very relevant to what Sunny is going to say. But he does have a draft of the apology, basically saying, things went badly, I'm sorry, we're trying to do things better. Considering this was supposed to be an apology to people directly involved, it doesn't have any extra details, so we're just going to skip over that. If you want to read it, I'll leave it linked down below. Now, Jordan Petrodus also gave a statement, and Jordan also is not very happy here. You mentioned fundraising as part of your goals, but it was under your stewardship of the board that the foundation went almost bankrupt. What happened, and what assurances are there that it won't happen again? Robert denies that this happened, instead saying, the foundation did not go almost bankrupt. The reserves policy and the annual budgeting process did what they were designed to do, and the foundation met every financial obligation at all times. It wasn't a comfortable ride. We had a deficit year that drew down reserves more than intended, but we had them, and they worked. During the financial year when Holly was ED, that is executive director, not erectile dysfunction, the board approved an ambitious fundraising budget. In practice, that fundraising didn't materialize for a mix of reasons, leading to a deficit year, which reduced the reserves. Basically, this actually did happen. He's not actually denying that it happened, but they did try to stop it, and the fundraising didn't happen, so it almost did happen, but they tried to make sure it didn't happen. Back to Jordan, you also mentioned the executive committee, but it was also under your watch that the foundation hired a very, let's say, unorthodox pick for the executive director position. Holly would later on leave before her term was concluded in what only looks like a rage quit, and with many people blaming everything on her afterwards and avoiding taking any responsibility. Holly is Holly Million, also known as the GNOME Shaman. When she left the board, when she left her position as executive director, she basically said, I'm out, boys. I will be pursuing a PhD in psychology and dedicating myself to my own private practice. Pretty much, I'm gone. Don't talk to me. Back to Robert. I was on the hiring committee. I can't speak to the specific motivations of the other directors who cast their votes, but from my perspective, at a time when our need is, holy crap, we need to do a better job telling our story to the outside world and raise funds ASAP, but we're a bunch of FOSS hackers and don't know a lot about non-profit funding, a storyteller / filmmaker and communicator who has turned around a number of non-profits and written a literal book on fundraising seemed like a reasonable choice. Whilst I can understand that perspective, as someone outside the foundation, I don't think anything really improved in regards to that with Holly. I felt like I was more confused about what the foundation was actually doing. I certainly don't blame Holly for everything. I think she ended up in a difficult situation, handling a complicated mixture of factors, and she did what she could. Back to Jordan. It was also you that personally unbanned Sunny 2 weeks after his account was suspended by the Code of Conduct Committee without notifying them at all. There were plenty of people that were interacting with Sunny regularly, mainly involving the STF grant, and none of them or the rest of the community was notified about what was happening and if it was okay to be interacting with him. Additionally, he was even allowed to handle the STF invoices from the contractors for weeks, all while the COCC, that is the Code of Conduct Committee, thought he was banned. That, if this is true, is utterly insane. So just consider it like this. He's not an employee, but imagine he was. This would be like firing someone from your company, and then 3 weeks later, they are still handling your contracts. What? Back to Robert. The review was right to criticize the lack of communications from the executive committee here, and I accept that. Boards and committees are not designed for real-time operation. The board meets monthly and the EC weekly. And this situation unfolded over a matter of hours and days through messages, emergency meetings, and late-night calls. The board voted to temporarily lift the ban in order to give Sunny access to records in GitLab, Etherpad, etc. because the bylaws require 2 separate hearings around removing a director and about removing foundation membership. I communicated this board decision to the infrastructure team to implement it. It was a board decision, not my unilateral action. Back to Jordan. This escalated further when the COC committee went looking for a loophole in order to bypass you, overriding their decision. This entire saga undermined a lot of credibility and trust the community had towards both the board and the COC committee, and the entire process has left us with a lot of unanswered questions to this day. If the issue at hand was this severe that Sunny needed to be perma-banned from the community, why did you think it was fine to unban him? If it was resolved and it was fine to interact with him and have him engage in the community, why did the COC committee go rogue and ban him again despite your decision? Don't you worry, we will talk about his serious crime a little bit later when we get to Sunny's statement. Back to Robert. About the reban, the board and COC committee were in different positions and the authority for temporary suspensions is delegated, but permanent bans require the board. After the elections, we had new directors re-examining everything from scratch, while the COC committee, the same people as before, continued to hold their original view. Once they learnt about the current status and considering the time pressure the evening before Guadec, they acted within their authority as they saw the need. I wrote and proposed the motion to lift the permanent ban and leave the temporary ban in place, and also to formally end the membership removal process because that hearing had not taken place. In all these years since, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any public acknowledgement of the responsibility of these issues and their causes. Why should people trust you again and elect you to the board this time? Well, now we have Sonny Piers. We have Sonny Piers basically explaining pretty much most of what happened. Now, could he be lying? Absolutely. I don't have any extra information here. I can only go off what is being said. Sonny is not currently a GNOME Foundation member, and unless things actually improve, I don't think that will be changing anytime soon. Rob assured and insisted to Tobias Bernard and I that the Foundation would make an effective fiscal sponsor for the €1 million STF grant. We knew that under Rob's long presidency and directorship, it was dysfunctional, but we chose to trust them rather than looking for another fiscal host or creating a new entity because we hoped it would bring the community together. Shortly after joining as a director, I realized the situation was even worse than I thought. I won't go into detail here. I believe that new directors are aware and working hard on the issues. I took my mission as a director seriously, in particular the responsibility of care and of loyalty, including to the Foundation members who elected me in hopes of change. Something as basic as processing incoming emails and paying invoices was not working over and over. I tried my best for weeks to be understanding and helpful. Eventually, I was assured the problem was solved and invoices would be paid on time. Later, I get an email from a partner, that being a designer or a developer, a contractor in this project, saying that not only the past few monthly invoices were never paid, but they did not receive a reply from the person in charge of it at the Foundation. Basically, if this is true, contractors were not being paid. Again, if this is true, I can entirely understand why the Foundation did not want to talk about this. This would not be Wayland Protocol discussion drama. This would be really bad. I sent a letter demanding the executive committee to start addressing the structural and operational failures, some of which may breach California nonprofit law, and hold board members accountable. The GNOME Foundation, it is in California, or I would have no other choice than to resign and inform the GNOME community and partners. The initial response was positive. We started working on a path forward until during a meeting with Rob, he had the audacity to blame the STF team for the unpaid invoices. I lost my temper. Entirely reasonable thing to do, considering what was going on. Again, if it is true. Don't sue me. I apologized to all parties immediately after, but that didn't stop the third participant of that meeting to file a complaint against me. This led Federico, that being Federico Mena Quintero, a COC committee member and also sitting board member, to send a letter to the board of directors demanding to ban me permanently with accusations of intimidation, disruption of discussions, and influencing or encouraging inappropriate behavior. I don't know how we got there. What I do know is that I was never contacted by anyone with concerns about my behavior or my directorship. It was also worth noting that the COC committee back then was composed of 4 people, including Federico. This meant the meeting we had planned to inform the full board about the operational failures got cancelled. I don't know entirely why this happened. what it sounds like to me is Sonny was going to inform the rest of the board on what was happening, on invoices not being paid, and before that could happen, he ended up being banned from the board. That seems like what went down here. I was informed that the board followed the COC recommendation to ban me. The board at the time was largely disengaged. One director challenged both the procedure and its content, but to no effect. For anyone out there that wants to compare a COC committee to an HR department, here is your perfect example. Get rid of the person before they cause any problems. Save the organization. But if this is all to be believed, it gets worse. Rob escalated with an offer to sign a non-disparagement agreement, aka a gag procedure, aka an NDA, which would expose me to a fine should I criticize any of the Foundation's staff or directors. If I refused, a defamatory statement about me would be published. Since the defamatory statement had no ground, I chose not to sign the agreement. I am not aware of a statement being published. Obviously, there was like the announcement of his ban, but I don't think that's what it would have been. That didn't really seem defamatory. But if they didn't publish it, I can understand why they wouldn't have. Because let's say he gets banned, okay? He gets banned, they publish a statement about him, insulting him, defamation, all that good stuff. Then he says, okay, we're gonna play that game. Here are the receipts. Here's the GNOME Foundation not paying contractors. Enjoy. That wouldn't just be something they can just like sweep under the rug. That wouldn't just be like a little drama that's happened. That likely would have been the end of the GNOME Foundation. There probably would have been lawyers, there probably would have been court cases, and this is something that they would never recover from. I don't know what sort of damage that would have done to the project as a whole, but the Foundation, there would be no Foundation. Knowing that the fallout of this was going to harm the Foundation, community, project, and my reputation, I spent a lot of goodwill trying to de-escalate. I asked the COC committee for a meeting, I apologized to the board, I suggested the mediation, I support the Foundation in taking over STF, and so on. Things lingered. Rob sabotaged the mediation by refusing to take any responsibility. There was an independent review about the processes, not the content as far as I know, as I wasn't asked a single question. People argued, Rob kept everything quiet, got re-elected, then published the announcement that I had been removed from the board. After reviewing the case, the new board undid my ban, which prompted Federico to propose a motion to ban me permanently again, which didn't receive any support. Immediately after, Federico acted as a member of the COC committee to ban me for 1 year, the maximum allowed. Remember, Federico is a member of both the board and the COC committee, which to me seems like a process oversight. If you have doubts about my story, please refer to comments by people in the know and who don't have to work with Rob or Federico, such as Stephen, who shared the same fate I did last longer though, or Tobias, who witnessed it all. Now, that statement about Stephen, this is also something that was never stated publicly. I had my suspicions. Stephen had a very short tenure, lasting for about 4 months. I had assumed that he had been kicked out, but I didn't have any evidence of it. My assumption is based on the fact that very shortly after that, he was vague posting and shit-talking about something that was totally not the GNOME Foundation. Back to 2026 and Rob's candidacy. Beyond his overwhelming responsibility in the state of the Foundation, it's worth noting that, despite everything that happened, Tobias and I handed everything related to STF over to Rob, including an agreement in principle from STF for a second funding round. But he was unable to get anything moving. KDE did. Likely because they were aware of something going badly, and going with the same organization once again probably was not going to go well. Rob was already promising FlatHub payments in 2024 and 2022, all the way back to 2019. I made videos on this multiple times. Did you know that FlatHub was supposed to have optional paid applications and donations built into the platform? You probably don't, because it hasn't been talked about for a while and nothing has happened. Robert, you don't need to be on the board to contribute or make your expertise available should it be required, especially when you don't have time for GNOME, as mentioned in your candidacy. Thanks to new blood, lucidity, and some courage, the GNOME Foundation is finally moving in the right direction to support the project and the community. There is still a lot to do, so don't rest on your laurels. I guess the internet won't care about this anymore, but stating the obvious just in case. Nobody should be harassed. I'm saying the same here. If you want to say stupid things in my comments, go say stupid things in my comments, but don't go and harass people. If you're a GNOME Foundation member, pass this along and vote accordingly. Otherwise, thanks for reading. Please let GNOME Foundation members handle this. Love, from Sunny Piers. And right now, there is no more feedback on this thread, but I have a feeling that is going to change very shortly. So, I am going to go edit this video because it is almost 3 a.m. right now, and I was made aware of this a few hours back. This is going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. So, if you like the video, go like the video, go subscribe, let me know your thoughts down below, and, well, who knows where this is going to go. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, start, leave verify, link in the description down below. That's going to be it for me. I have water here, but it's not helping right now, so I'm going to go. See you guys later.
Something like this.